Hey Woolies, how's it going? This is the inaugural episode of the Woolie Network. I'm Joey Bean. I'm the host. This is my co-host Ryan Foley.
How you doing?
So today, for our first episode, we have a very special guest. So to start off semester 2, we got the former editor of the New England Patriots official team newspaper, Patriots Football Weekly. He's a former talk show host. He's an author, and he's the current executive director of the Patriots Hall of Fame presented by Raytheon Technologies, Mr. Bryan Morry.
Wow, you should be my agent.
Hey, not a bad intro, right?
I don't need one, but if I did.
Hey, Bryan, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
No problem.
Awesome. All right, let's start off with the first question. So, as the executive director of the Hall, what is your job all about, and what does a normal day look like?
So, I have a great staff, fortunately, and so they really make my job easier. I think we have a great team of people that come every day and make sure that our guests that visit the Hall of Fame have a great experience when they're on our site. But what my job is basically to oversee all operations of the building. We have a robust education program that we host field trips in non-COVID time. We host field trips pretty much every day throughout the school year. Right now we've transitioned to virtual field trips that we're doing. So we're working with schools on a virtual basis. We've had to tailor our education modules for that setting, but it's been very successful over the past. We really started doing that in the new year. We had worked up to it, had to invest in some equipment to make it so it would be professional, but we did that. And so we've started doing virtual field trips, and we have other education programs as well. We do a Massachusetts STEM Teacher of the Year award that we give out annually. We do a Read Between the Lines Summer Reading Challenge. We do Black History Month activities. We're in the midst of an essay contest that we hosted. So, and when COVID hit, we did a lot of other stuff. So we released lesson plans that teachers could use if they were looking for something outside the box, a little different, that could be football related for the kids to be interested in. We also did a lot of at-home activities that we basically created a page on our website where people could go and just do activities. It was for families, for kids, for teachers, anybody could go on there. And that was really a focus for us when we had to close down last March and shift to an environment where we're trying to stay connected with fans, but we couldn't do it live. So we really switched to that, and our education coordinator did an awesome job with all of that. We have a marketing coordinator whose job really is to get people to come visit us, and we do that in a variety of ways. We have an advertising budget. We've done some TV spots that he works on. We've done a lot of digital advertising, and we do a lot of email and social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. So, some of that we utilize more than others. In fact, I just got off a meeting we were talking about trying to up our YouTube game, which has been very limited. And doing more live video stuff like Facebook Live and things like that. But we're working on some other virtual programming now as well. We're working on something that will allow us to do live virtual tours for people around the country. So people, with people not traveling as much right now, we have fan clubs all over the country. So if they want to tour the museum, we'll create some opportunities for people to do that and maybe give some behind the scenes access as well as part of that. Working on some private events. So we're open right now only on weekends. So we're talking about doing private tours on the days we're closed for small groups, maybe families, things like that, that people that want to come and see the museum in a setting where if they're a little timid about bigger groups being around, that they can have a private event, a private tour of the hall while we're not open to the public. We've done some virtual adult events with libraries. So we're really just trying to find ways to stay connected, and I think the staff has done an awesome job on that. And then we have a curator who works on our exhibits and our collection. We actively collect throughout the season. We have to work very closely with our equipment manager, and he because we, especially this year with COVID, when we didn't have access to the locker room, we had to depend on the equipment manager to get us things. So when there's a milestone or a career best performance or a record-breaking performance, we go to him to get the artifacts that we need from the game used memorabilia, and we collected a number of things this year. Jake Bailey had probably arguably the best year a Patriots punter has ever had.
Yes.
Cam Newton broke some records in the rushing side as a quarterback, tied Steve Grogan's record with 12 rushing touchdowns. That was originally an NFL record set in 1976, rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in a single season. Newton actually broke that record in his rookie season with Carolina, but now has tied the franchise record here with us. So, while he certainly faced his share of criticism this year, he was able to do some things on the ground that we haven't really seen from a Patriots quarterback since Steve Grogan back in the 70s. So, but our curator will work on different exhibits, little displays that we do. He's working on the draft display right now. We have a great team that is constantly trying to engage with our fan base. And then there's a whole maintenance factor to our building. Our building runs on a lot of computers and technology, a lot of interactive parts of our museum. And so, we have to make sure that that's maintained and that things inevitably break. And I think the key is that we limit downtime on exhibits. We certainly don't want fans coming back and seeing things not working. So that's always a challenge for us to not only make sure things are operational, but that anything that goes wrong gets repaired in a very timely fashion.
Yeah. And Bryan, you started to touch on the topic of getting gear and game-used memorabilia to add to the hall. So I just wanted to get right onto that and ask you, so what does the process of adding game memorabilia to the hall look like? Who makes the decisions on that, and the decision-making process on what goes into the hall?
So typically, after a game, let's just say, Tom Brady passed 70,000 passing yards, and we want to get the ball or his jersey or something from that game. I send in an email right to our equipment manager that night, because one of the keys for us is we want that jersey right off his back. We don't want it. So our equipment manager sends all the jerseys out after every game to be reconditioned. So they get cleaned and reconditioned. If there's any rips or tears, they get mended, so that each week they basically have a jersey that almost looks new. And so we want the jerseys right off their backs, not washed. Any grass stains or markings, we want that on the jersey. And as a great example of that, we have James White's whole uniform from the game-winning touchdown in Super Bowl 51. Yep. He set a record with 20 points in that game, and he scored the game-winning touchdown. And the way we displayed that was we actually have this wall with White, the winning touchdown, Edelman's catch, and Dante Hightower's strip sack. Yep. And we have a graphic of those plays on the wall, and then we built the artifact cases coming out of the graphics, so they almost look three-dimensional. So you can actually walk up to James White's uniform, see the markings on his shoulder, and then look behind him and see the graphic of his shoulder, and those same markings are on the picture. So it adds a level of authenticity for us that I think is really cool. So we always want things as is after a game. And then in a lot of seasons, like last year, before COVID in 2019, our curator will go to the locker room after a game, on the Monday after the game, and say he wants Stephon Gilmore's cleats, he'll just ask him for them. So we go that route as well. After Super Bowl 53, I was down in the locker room. It's kind of awkward, actually. I don't really enjoy that part of it. The players just won the Super Bowl, and here I am. Hey, can I have your cleats? But it's something we have to do to really be able to chronicle Patriots history, and especially years from now when we're telling those stories, and even when I'm no longer on this earth and whoever's in this role can be able to tell those stories. So we really do it for the future as much as the present.
Yeah, some of that stuff is so interesting. Obviously it's known that you guys have one of the best Hall of Fames in the league, and some of the best pieces of game memorabilia and the presentation of it.
And sometimes it's just a cool story that goes with it. So everybody knows the story about Super Bowl 51 when Tom Brady's jersey was stolen.
Yeah, of course.
By a member of the media in Mexico City. Well, what we didn't know at that time was that his Super Bowl 49 jersey was also stolen.
Yeah, that same guy.
And we never had it. I just assumed he had it. Because we have a lot of Super Bowl stuff, but we didn't have that jersey. So when it came out that both jerseys were stolen, they were both recovered by the FBI, sent back to the stadium, and Robert Kraft gave Brady the Super Bowl 51 jersey and sent the Super Bowl 49 jersey over to us at the Hall. So that jersey is on display and has that cool story of being in Mexico City and being part of that whole dramatic story of the jerseys getting stolen from the Super Bowl locker room.
Yeah, it was like right after that, the best victory of all time, and then boom, he doesn't have his jersey, And
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I know, it really
it's unbelievable to me. Knowing what Super Bowl security is like.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've been to several of them and been in the locker room, it shocks me that someone would have the guts to even attempt to do that. And Brady obviously knew, even though he hadn't said it, he obviously didn't know where his Super Bowl 49 jersey went. And he put 51 in his bag.
Yeah, I know.
Came out of the bathroom and it was gone.
Yeah, and the same guy had Von Miller's Super Bowl 50 helmet.
Right.
That's crazy.
How do you walk out of the locker room with a helmet?
I know, that's one, like the jersey I can see, stuff it in a bag, and that's what he did, but a helmet, I don't know how that.
But those locker rooms are full of people.
Yeah.
And
no one saw it.
I guess within the hustle and bustle, you could kind of get away with sneaking a jersey, but I don't know. I still don't know how you do it without someone seeing it.
Yeah, especially the two most valuable jerseys in history.
Well, I can tell you at Super Bowl 53, there were 2 security guards standing in front of his locker the entire time.
I bet you. I can't imagine what the security around there was, right?
It was not going to happen again.
I know, this can't be a triple whammy here. Yeah. Ryan, you got a question?
Yeah, so this is more about like how you got into your job. So like what was the process of you working your way up the ladder to the Patriots organization to the position that you're at now?
So, okay, I'll try to not make this a long story, but I think a lot always goes back to relationships. And I always tell kids, when they're doing internships and things like that, that you never know what relationship is going to end up being an important one. So assume they all will be. I know there are people that do internships where they get asked to do really remedial things and they don't want to do them. I always say, do them with a smile. You don't have to like it, but your attitude and the relationships you form, you never know what's going to help you. And I'll tell you a story in a minute. I'll share my story first, but after I went to Boston University, I was a journalism major, moved to Atlanta. I did an internship at CNN, got a job at a little weekly newspaper in Cartersville, Georgia, which is where Trevor Lawrence is from, actually.
Yeah.
And was doing some radio down there, morning sports on a country music radio station, and wanted to come back up north. I'm from Rhode Island. And so I took a job at the University of Rhode Island in their sports information office, media relations, as basically a paid intern, 2 years out of school. I was making $900 a month on a 10-month contract, and just to get back up here. And so while doing that, the first year I did that, I worked with a woman named Beth James, and her husband is Stacey James, who's the vice president of media relations for the Patriots. So after the first 10 months, they kept me on, renewed my contract for a second year. I didn't have a full-time position, so I was willing to stay, even though I couldn't afford to go buy new socks if I needed them. But Beth eventually left and took a job at Brown University, and I was given her job on an interim basis, but basically told by the athletic director that they needed to hire a woman for that position because women are underrepresented in that field. And so, knew while I was interim that I wasn't going to get that job. Well, Beth reached out to me from Brown and let me know that the Patriots had started a team newspaper in 1995 called Patriots Football Weekly, and had worked really with just interns the first couple of years, and were hiring a full-time writer-editor. And so she told me, send your resume to Stacey, and I did, and he forwarded it to Fred Kirsch, who's now the vice president of content for the Patriots. And so I sent it to him. I went up and interviewed for that job with Fred, and got that job in April of 1997. I started. And so I did that. I was the editor of the team newspaper from April of 97 to September of 2005, and then left to go do sports radio in Providence. I co-hosted an afternoon drive talk show with Scott Cornishi on 99.7 FM and 790 AM, The Score, and did that for a couple years. And then when the Patriots were building the museum, they reached back out to me and we had a conversation about me going back. They really didn't know at that point what the role would be, but I was certainly interested in it. And so it really heated up in kind of October, those conversations. And I actually accepted the position and went back in December of 2007 while the museum was under construction, never having run a museum. Made it very clear to Jonathan Kraft that I didn't know what I was doing. And I think I got a lot of confidence in the fact that he said, his reply to me was, "You'll learn." He knew I knew the culture, he knew I knew the team, and he knew I could learn. And I actually just went out and bought books on how to run a museum and read them. But what I worked on initially was basically content, which was my thing. And I was able to really do all the writing for all the exhibits and really, it's just telling the story. And so that's what I did. And we opened in September of 2008. And so I've been in this role ever since. As the executive director of the Museum and Hall of Fame, and really have been out of the journalism side of it. And so, it's been really rewarding, especially early on, to really learn something entirely new while still working in something I'm very passionate about. And so, it's not like going to work, when you love what you do, it's pretty exciting and pretty fun. I mean, it's a job, there are certainly days when you're doing stuff that's not fun, but overall, I think the fact that we get to entertain Patriots fans and create experiences for them is exciting for me.
Absolutely. I mean, your job is definitely one of the few ones, but one of the most interesting, and that's why we reached out, wanted to get you on, and so I wanted to follow up with that and say that obviously you've been in the sports career field in all sorts of different positions all in your life. For the high school students and young adults watching that have interest in pursuing a career in sports, what would your advice be to start in the right direction?
Well, it depends on where you want to do. I've talked to a lot of kids. Like, for example, I was a journalism major. Well, my first job was covering news, not sports, in Cartersville, Georgia. But you have to like to write. You can't just like sports. You have to like writing to do that job. There's jobs in sports that are in accounting and finance and marketing and all these things that, you go to school and those aren't sports majors. And I don't actually ever recommend, I know, for example, UMass has a terrific sports management program. I always recommend, if you want to major in that, major in business and minor in that. Now, they may dispute that, but I just feel like it gives you more options. You don't want to pigeonhole yourself. There's a lot of ways to get into sports, but the jobs are few and far between. There's not that many teams when you think about it. And so those jobs are hard to get. And so give yourself options. And maybe you take a job doing something in the business world while you try to get into sports. You can be an accountant and come work for the Patriots. You can be an IT person and come work for the Patriots. So, there's different ways to get there. But I always feel like you should give yourself options as you go through. And then, again, I'm going to go back to the relationships, and I'm going to tell you a separate story. When I worked at the University of Rhode Island, there was a student who was the sports editor of the school newspaper, which was called the Good 5 Cent Cigar. And so he'd come in my office all the time looking for information, looking for stats on some of our athletes. And I'd see him covering games, and I would read his stuff in the paper, and we would chat from time to time, and just a super nice kid. And he had no idea that I was forming any sort of impression of him, right? It's not like we talked all the time. It was sporadic. But fast forward, and I'm at Patriots Football Weekly, and we're hiring an intern. And I interview 4 people for the position, and didn't want to hire any of them. In fact, there was one guy who comes in, and I take him in to meet my boss, and my boss asks him the old typical interview question, so what do you say your strengths are? And the guy is like slouched down in his chair like this, and he says, well, I'd probably say my enthusiasm. And I was like, so I actually remembered the kid at URI, and I still had people I knew down there. I picked up the phone, I called a couple people, I tracked him down. He wasn't working in the business, and I hired him.
Really?
And he eventually went on to work at the Metro West Daily News in Framingham, and now he's the sports information director back at URI in my old boss's job. And so, but again, I called him because he made a good impression on me. And so my point is you never know who that's going to be. So remember, as you go through any experiences that you have, that people will form impressions of you, and you may not even know that those things will lead to opportunity for you. So I think that's as important as anything. Networking and relationships are important, and just, do whatever is asked of you when you're young. Have no ego, no expectations. I think some people today feel like they're going to graduate and walk into some six-figure job, and it doesn't work that way for most people. And so I think that the understanding that you have to pay your dues a little bit, and entry-level positions in sports teams don't pay a lot, but you get unbelievable experience in those positions. When you go into I interviewed for a job one time with the Boise Hawks. I don't even know if that team still exists. It was a minor league baseball team. And I ended up, they called me back for a second interview, and I actually declined and said, you know what, I'm not going to Boise. I had just moved to Atlanta at the time, so I didn't want to waste their time. But you go work for like a minor league sports franchise, you do everything there. You sell tickets, you market, you might even help the grounds crew, for crying out loud. You're running promotions in between innings. You get amazing experience doing that stuff that really can help you in your career. But you bet you're going to be living at home probably, or sharing an apartment with 3 people.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to do that, that can really kickstart you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Ryan, you got one?
Yeah. So what's your personal favorite aspect of your job?
That's a great question. I would have to say that no matter what the team has done on the field, if they lost 33-9 to the 49ers on Sunday, it doesn't matter to the people that are coming in our building, that they're coming in to have a great experience, to walk back through Patriots history, to remember the moments that evoke emotions, positive and negative, to celebrate our championships, and to have a great time. And so that's what we get to provide. So regardless of what happened on the field, the fact that we have an opportunity to make somebody's day is what I most cherish in my job, and what I try to convey to our staff. And really, that's the expectation, I think. You hear the term Patriots Way. I'm sure you guys have heard that term, right? And people define that differently, and the media might like to mock it from time to time when something bad happens. But to me, it starts with the crafts, and the Patriots Way is the expectation that everything we do will be done at a championship level. And that doesn't mean you always reach that level, but that's where you strive to get. And if you strive to get there and you fall short, well, maybe you came close. And I think that's the expectation throughout our organization, no matter what department you work in, whether you're in football or out of football. And that's the way I approach our museum and Hall of Fame. And so we expect that our guests get treated like Robert Kraft would get treated if he walked off the elevator.
Yeah, I think you hit the spot right there, the Patriot Way. Not only on the field, not only in the locker room, but throughout the whole organization. So Ryan, you got one?
Have you had, so this is more just like your experience now with players and owners. Have you had any like cool interactions with executives or coaches or players? If so, what's the most memorable one?
a good question. I've had a lot. I mean, I've had amazing experiences over the years.
Yeah, don't be shy to
have
let
some
us know,
pretty good
because we're all
relationships
ears.
with people. You know, I went to Ty Law's Hall of Fame induction out in Canton a couple of years ago, and it was great. You know, so many of his former teammates came out, and those were guys I covered when I was covering the team. And now, not being in the media, my relationship with them is a little different. And so that was really an exciting opportunity for me. Certainly going to Super Bowls. You know, sitting down when I was at PFW, I used to sit down with Bill Belichick in the off season in his office once a month and have some really great conversations and learn a ton about football. Even watched film with him a couple times. I mean, I think he's the greatest coach of all time. So to be able to sit and learn the game from him was pretty special. You know, some of the memorable things too aren't always positive. You know, I have a really great relationship with Ty Law, but certainly have had, you know, conversations in the locker room with him at times that weren't pleasant when I had written something or asked him something that he didn't like. But never personal. You know, it's never personal. And I think, you know, when you approach it that way, you know, and as long as you're, as a writer, one thing I always asked myself was, if a player approaches me on this, can I defend myself? And if I can, then I can write it and feel comfortable about writing it, even if it's critical, and be able to have a conversation with the player. And if I can't defend myself, then I shouldn't be writing it. And so I never had any situations where, you know, it got adversarial, even if it was intense. But, you know, I think those like the Super Bowl experiences are amazing. There's just so many. It's as a kid, grew up a huge sports fan. I never thought I would have the opportunity to attend a Super Bowl. And when we were going to Super Bowl 53, somebody asked me how many Super Bowls I'd been to, and I joke, I say, "Oh, Brady and I have combined for 18." And he says, "You mean Brady carried you to 9?" I said, "Yeah, of course, that's the joke. I didn't tackle anybody. I'm just lucky."
Of course, yeah.
So, you know, I think those experiences have been amazing, but there's just so many conversations you have over the years, so many opportunities to learn. You know, like I said, you know, sitting with Dante Scarnecchia and talking football with him, or, you know, talking to, you know, a player, a linebacker about the 3-4 defense and what they're trying to accomplish and how they switch from 3-4 to 4-3 and go multiple, but the principles of the defense being the same. Just being able to, I never played football, and I felt like I learned a ton about it, and was able to really, I think, be fair and be a better football writer because of the guys that are willing to share information and talk to you about certain formations, plays, pass routes, all the little things that when you establish relationships with the players, they're willing to share with you. And never with the intent of trying to throw somebody under the bus. You know, I think they feel like if I was more knowledgeable, that I would be better at my job and could better write about the games, as opposed to writing something that might be wrong that, you know, they may not even read it, but someone in their family reads it and then tells them about it, and you're getting called out in the locker room. You know, so I think, you know, having the opportunity to really talk football with guys. You know, I never really enjoyed the off the field stuff, like, you know, when a guy gets in trouble, maybe did something wrong off the field and you have to cover that. You do have to cover it. But I never really enjoyed that part of it. But I really enjoyed the football side of it. You know, learning so much and covering guys that, you know, are Hall of Fame caliber players. But, you know, sitting down for a feature story with Tom Brady. I mean, after Super Bowl 38, when he engineered his second game-winning drive in a Super Bowl in 2 tries, I sat down. We went play-by-play through that final drive. And this was in the off-season, and he remembered every play call. He was like, then we ran, you know, 64 max all in. We ran this play with hitch OPEC, and he's telling me about what those terms mean, it was great to sit there and relive that with him. And it was like it was yesterday. It was like it was game day for him. He knew it. He knew it cold. He knew every play they called. He knew what defense Carolina was in. It was terrific. It was just, I love that stuff.
Yeah, I know. I think everything that you just said is exactly what a person trying to get into sports is their dream job. Having that relationship with the players, and I think that's just the coolest thing. I'll tell you. You got one more?
I think when players and coaches see the way you go about your job and the effort you put in, they notice that, and I think they're more willing to work with you as a member of the media, as opposed to someone who shows up once a week or, maybe just reports what other people report. And, they know who works hard and who kind of just goes through the motions.
You said you have one more?
Yeah, so I have my last question just for the viewers. So you said earlier how private sessions, right, to go tour the hall? Is that what you said?
Yeah, we're talking about doing that. We haven't done it yet, but we're talking about doing those.
And would that be if it's a go, would that be on your website?
It would. If we do that, we will post that on our website along with any other offerings. We're doing virtual tours, things of that nature. But yeah, so we would certainly be posting that once we finalize it and make that available.
All right.
Bryan, I got one question. I think it's the one that everybody wants to hear, everyone wants to know. So it's obvious that Mr. Kraft is extremely generous, awarding his entire staff to the ring after a Super Bowl championship for their hard work and team effort. So I have to ask, has Mr. Kraft gave you a championship ring as a sign of appreciation?
He sure has.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
it's
awesome.
pretty cool.
Yeah, I bet you.
Really, really
So how big is
fortunate.
that thing? How
As I
big?
always say, I didn't score a touchdown. I didn't tackle anybody. I do believe that winning and losing is an organizational thing, and people throughout the organization in the support system that exists have a role. But at the end of the day, I certainly didn't do anything to help the Patriots win a championship. And so for Robert Kraft to be generous enough to give us championship rings, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
I don't even know I don't even know what to say about it, other than I'm so thankful that he's been willing to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, that just shows he's the one of the best. That's for sure. All right, Bryan. We appreciate you joining us. It's a huge honor to have you on the first episode. So thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
All right. See you later.